Today is the day. It's the day that everyone thought that Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, and Dockside were all getting unbanned, but they weren't. They still remain on the ban list. However, that doesn't mean there wasn't any big updates today. We had multiple cards unbanned, and the Game Changer list was updated too, and we had a lot of very transparent conversation around where Commander's going from a Wizards managed perspective. These cards were unbanned. I'm going to go through them individually and talk about whether or not I feel comfortable about the unbans, whether I think it's a good or a bad idea, and just generally unpack the entire announcement. So grab yourselves a sody pop and also listen to this quick message from our sponsors. The content on this channel is brought to you by Gamegenic. You've already heard of Gamegenic because they're your favorite content creators' favorite products. This is the Academic, it's a beauty. And this is the Squire Plus, which has a side compartment for your commander. It is gorgeous. This is a dungeon. It's got this incredible flip top lid with these great magnetic clasps. I'm using it to hold all of my pre-con decks for Doctor Who and Warhammer in these bastions to create a little board game environment. But it's not just Magic the Gathering either. I use this stuff for all sorts of tabletop gaming. I'm using their wonderful token silos to store these absolutely gorgeous dice that I then take with me to Warhammer 40k tournaments. And the wonderful thing about this token silo is that the lid pops off, slides under, and connects in and fits all snugly. As you know, it eventually have very little actual table space. So to have the things we have to like compact onto each other and the lids clip into each other and similar, it's just a wonderful way of saving table space when table space is a premium. You can check out the link in the description below to Gamegenic's website to find their products, and all their stuff is available at all good local game stores and retailers. There is a reason this is your favorite content creator's favorite stuff. Right, bans, unbans, and also press F to pay your respects to this speculator who bought a load of Tolarian Academies thinking they were getting unbanned today. A big part of today's announcement, we knew it was coming, was the MTG finance community getting very excited about making a lot of money on Docksides. Of course, some of them will be making money on the cards that got unbanned today, but they will be making money on Docksides, nor Tolarian Academies. Firstly, let's talk about the bracket system and the Game Changer system and how that changed. Trouble in Pairs and Trinisphere were taken off, and these are reasonable things to take off. And then a load of cards have been added. In essence, I'll put them on screen now. Teferi's Protection, Humility, and so on. I think pretty much every choice going on the Game Changers list, I completely and utterly agree with. I have never seen such a collection of just absolutely solid, powerful effects that absolutely do change the nature of the game. Not only in like being cards that upon entering the battlefield change the game, but just the threat of them being cast, from Intuitions to August Bowmasters, will transform a game of Commander. So all in all, absolutely stellar choices for additions and removals from the Game Changer list. I spoke at length in my videos around the bracket system when they came out that I wasn't that impressed with the beta version of the bracket system, and I'm still not. I still don't think it's as robust a system as I would have liked. It's a hard thing to get right though. The one thing I do like from it is the language we got from it to allow us to have these conversations with fellow gamers before we start a game of Commander, and Game Changers are probably the best part of that. There are a handful of cards they talked about, like whether they need to be on or off the Game Changer list. There's 2 points I wanted to get to here. Firstly, they mentioned how Farewell shouldn't be on the list because it's just a reset and it stops people from getting ahead. And then they unbanned Sway of the Stars, which is just a reset and stops people from getting ahead. But in the same vein, it's a really fucking annoying reset. I'll go into that more in a moment. Mystic Remora is not on the Game Changer list. I think it should be. It's just clear cut as that. The card is a Game Changer. It's less solid as Ristic Study, but it's just as good in the games where it comes down early. I think this should be on the Game Changer list. And still, Force of Will is on the Game Changer list, and I think it should come off. I don't think any card where you're 2 from 1ing yourself to protect your big spell or stop someone else from comboing is really a Game Changer as such. I don't think this is in the same vein as the rest of the cards on the list. This is not a Consecrated Sphinx. This is not a Narset. But overall, Game Changers, absolutely massive thumbs up from me. It's my favorite part of this whole thing. There will be a link in the description below to the full list of Game Changers and the rationale around all the cards. It's very transparent and very well written. Props to Gavin and the rest of the committee for getting this thing together. Now let's talk about bans and unbans. Nothing was banned, but there was a lot of unbans. Up front, it was Gifts Ungiven, Sway of the Stars, Braid's Cabal Minion, Coalition Victory, and Panoptic Mirror that are unbanned. Let's talk about them all individually. Gifts Ungiven is a 4-mana tutor that looks for 4 things. 2 of them go to your graveyard, 2 go to hand. If you fail to find on the second 2, you just get 2 things straight into the graveyard. Its default mode is to combo off with 2-card combos. That's normally a recursion spell and something that you want to recur. Unburial Rites and Grizzlebrand in older formats in the past, or an Iona, which is currently banned in Commander, much like Grizzlebrand is. I guess the most common thing will be Unburial Righting a creature that is very, very good on the current board, a Massacre Worm or an Elish Norn or similar. I think this is by far and by a huge margin the most powerful card that took off the ban list. It is a card that I assume will now go into most introduced blue decks, because not only is it this thing that always puts two things into the bin, and those two things can combo together if they're a recursive spell out of the graveyard. There's many things that can do that, but I also think that just the value pile of two things into the bin, two things into hand, and you normally give your opponent an impossible choice of like 2 reanimation spells, 1 has flashback, 2 huge fatties. There's never a good choice from Gifts Ungiven. Past in Flames was a common hit for it back in the day in the modern Storm deck. I don't hate Gifts Ungiven coming off the ban list. I think it's a worthy experiment. But what Gifts does is it immediately gives blue decks a new staple to reach for. This is the card that I think will have the biggest price increase and ongoing play of all the cards discussed in this video. And there is this talk of how sometimes it's a combo finder, sometimes it's a value package, and how the bracket system will inform that conversation and inform the game you're going to play, which is true. But something I do want to labor in this video is that the bracket system and the ban system do work together symbiotically, but sometimes some players function with one of them and not the other. Namely, the bracket system is sometimes ignored and the ban system is the only real rule of law for some playgroups. And thus, the whole idea that you can unban or ban things based upon how the bracket system will self-moderate doesn't always work when not everyone is engaged with the bracket system itself. There was 2 articles, one about bans and one about bracket systems. The bracket system one did have a lot of these talks of early wins for the bracket system, where they talked about how 83% of players that use the bracket systems at Chicago found that they had the most balanced games of Commander they'd ever had. But the truth be told, that is the players going to a Magic Con who are probably engaged with or being pushed to engage with the bracket system as a concept. There is a large body of Magic players that will only know about the ban list, and that's about as far as it goes. They do consume content, but they may not care about using the bracket system. And thus, I don't think the bracket system is the way to moderate cards like Gifts Ungiven. Although that said, I'm not clutching at my pearls saying that it's a bad unbanning. I'm just saying that it's clearly incredibly powerful, is now going to be a staple in Commander. On that note, let's talk about an opposite version of that. Let's talk about Sway of the Stars. It's a 10 mana card that says each player shuffles his or her hand, graveyard, and opponents he or she owns into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. Each player's life total becomes 7. For those of you too young to have ever played against this in a multiplayer, chaotic, Commander-esque environment, I'll tell you how it goes. Someone casts this, and the rest of the table wishes the game was over. The important thing about Sway of the Stars is that it's not just a draw 7 and everyone's life total becomes 7. It's much more akin to Wildfire, which, although on its unbanning from Commander, did not really shake up the environment of Commander. Wildfire is still a card that I do not want to see resolved against me in a game of Commander. It's fucking miserable. It's similar because it wraps up and sweeps up all the permanents that are in play. I actually think Sway of the Stars, Wildfire, and Farewell are all very, very similar. Farewell can pull its punches, where the player casting it can decide not to activate all full modes and full send into the game into oblivion, but all of them reset the game in a way that is just not enjoyable. We have this conversation in Commander about whether or not 8 mana and 10 mana spells should end the game, or whether 8 mana and 10 mana spells should be able to reset the game and similar. I hate this conversation. Like, yes, a 10 mana spell should do 10 mana spell stuff, but sometimes you cast a 10 mana spell and it does not end the game because the board state is very complicated, or people have interaction or effects or responses. That's a much more fun way of playing Magic to me. I think a 10 mana spell that literally ends the game on the spot for a very unsatisfying conclusion fucking sucks, and I think we should discourage those sort of play practices. Or if they're 10 mana and they reset the game, removing graveyards, graveyards, permanents, things in play. Just no, don't cast Sway of the Stars. Fuck me. In many ways, when someone casts against me, I'm going to wish it just said they win the game on it so we can just shuffle up and go again. That's probably my reaction to people casting this at my local store. I'm just going to be like, shall we just scoop? Should we just play another game? Is this going to be fun for anyone involved? I feel it's very strange to take this off the ban list. I guess it is similar to Wildfire, and most people just, self-regulate not to fucking play Wildfire. But someone will play Sway of the Stars. Again, I don't think it can't come off the ban list. It is coming off the ban list. I have no power over that. But what I mean is, I just don't know why these cards need to be in the fucking format. These are bad ideas for Commander. And on another fun ride is Braid's Cabal Minion, but I actually more agree with the sentiment here that the 4 mana 2/2 that grinds the game into a Staxy attrition-based match, it's actually quite slow and plodding. And in the modern world of very powerful interaction, you can quite easily cast one spell, kill Braids, put the Braids player back, a whole turn or two, and you're back to playing Magic. This card is a lot easier to interact with, and it's not unfun in the same way that Sway of the Stars just ruins a game of Commander, like absolutely derails the game and makes it fucking miserable. I'm not saying Braids can't be miserable, but I think the interaction points are easier and just that. They're just easier to get to. I'm glad to see Braids back. She is iconic, which is another point that they make. She's a card that people have very, very high attachment levels to because of her status in the game's story and as a card and a boogie woman of the format in the past. I'm glad to see Braids back. Again, though, I think this actually fits more in with that conversation around how the bracket system and the format can self-regulate, because seeing someone want to play Braids as their commander, that tells you a lot about the game. Meanwhile, the number of game changes you have doesn't necessarily matter if people aren't even fucking tracking it. They're just playing card decks that are legal in the format. I think the commander slot fits more into that because that is the thing that is shown up front without a deck list or further conversation. I think Braids is easier to, I guess, navigate through in the pre-game conversation than, say, someone randomly having Sway of the Stars in their deck where they don't know how many game changes they're playing or what bracket they're in. And Coalition Victory is now off the ban list too. It's a 8 mana multicolored spell that says you win the game if you have a 5-color commander in play. Now, it's a bit more complicated than that. You do need a land of each basic type, and you have a creature of all the colors, so a 5-color commander. And it doesn't work on 5-color commanders like Kenneth, for example. His colored entity is all 5 colors, but he is mono white. They even talk about how this is a very unsatisfying way to win a game by just tapping it with a couple of lands in play that fulfill all of the land types and having one creature that fulfills the creature type bit. And you've cast an 8 mana spell and everyone else has tapped out and you've won the game. Coalition Victory is probably going to continue to be one of those cards that people don't really play because it's too easy to interact with. At a higher power level, so people will have interaction, a removal spell, and when they cast Coalition Victory, before it resolves, you kill the 5-color creature. Coalition Victory resolves and does literally nothing. The opponent has cast a spell that's now in the graveyard, it's resolved, nothing has happened. Sure. The problem I have, though, is much like with Sway of the Stars, is that if someone just blindsides the table, you're playing quite a casual, chilled, level 3. How many game changes are we allowed in bracket 3? 3 game changes? Fucking hell. And someone slams their Coalition Victory, one of their 3 game changes in bracket 3, whilst everyone has to tap down, the game ends. And you've been playing for like an hour and a half, and an 8 mana sorcery just did that? God. It's one of the inherent problems of the commander in many ways. This kind of shit boils my piss. I don't think it's too powerful. I don't think it will warp or dominate the higher ends of the format, the bracket 4s, the bracket 5s, the CDHs and shit. Meanwhile, I think Gifts and Given, not being a dominant force, but will be playable in CDH. But I do think this is just like a really boring card to have off the ban list. Basically, like Coalition Victory and Sway of the Stars in that category of card where I just don't see the advantage of having them unbanned, other than like some people like this card. There's like 4 people, a dozen people worldwide that think Sway of the Stars is a fun Magic card, and thus they want to play with it. So we unban it, and then we get a load of experimental young teens, you know, in that period of their life where they're experimenting with Sway of the Stars. And before you know it, their parents are upset and saddened by a Sway of the Stars related death. And Panoptic Mirror is kind of in a similar camp. It's a 5 mana artifact that has an imprint cost of X and taps. You tap it, pay X, so 5 mana normally for a Time Warp. You put Time Warp under it, and then you upkeep, you get a trigger where you get a free Time Warp. It is incredibly expensive. You have to pay 5 mana initially, and then 5 mana more to tap it and put the extra turn spell under it. I'm using Time Warp as the example because it's the go-to extra turn spell and commander, right? So it does cost 10 mana to get there, and you've got to go around the entire table for an upkeep trigger, so the interaction point is pretty big and wide open. But there's also just points where people will slam this, activate it, put the time up under it, pass turn, and the entire table's like, fuck, none of us have an Abrade. None of us have a Vindicate. What? Are we just going to pass to them in their upkeep? They get infinite turns, because you get a new extra turn spell every turn. And sure, in higher powered level environments with interaction, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to fly. It's not going to resolve. The spell under it won't resolve. It will get destroyed. Whatever. Fine. I get that. But again, do we really want 5 to 10 mana things? Or in this case, a lot of these are 8 to 10 mana things that just blindside a casual table. It's one of your game changers at level 3, right? I guess, I don't know, I'm just assuming a lot of people are playing in that bracket 3 of 3 game changers, and I'm just finding something like a Panoptic Mirror just really tiresome to play against. And I'm someone who really likes interaction and really likes interactive Magic. I just don't like these fucking huge Haymaker win cons. Well, when I say Haymaker things, I mean just like blindside bullshit, okay? So at the top of that, we have Panoptic Mirror, which is basically a 10 mana win con. You have to go around the table rotation, so it's less likely to blindside you, gives people room to maneuver and finish the game or change the game up, beat up the person with the mirror, swing in for combat, that sort of stuff. That's on the upper crust of bollocks. Next down, we have the Coalition Victory, because if it does blindside the table, resolve and win, at least the game is over, and it's not satisfying, but we can go on to our next game. And then in the deep bullshit, the deep, darkest bullshit, is just Sway of the Stars, which is just like Wildfire, really. At the point that it resolves, everything is fucking miserable, and I wish someone had won instead. I guess what I'm getting at is like, a lot of these cards have been on the ban list for a long time, and they're not gonna dominate or be powerhouses. I think Sway of the Stars and Coalition Victory are kind of bad Magic cards from an objective standpoint. But my fucking god, what do they bring to the format by having them unbanned? Like, other than having the meme factor, or like a dozen people who like Sway of the Stars finally allowing them, pulling off their chastity belt to allow their throbbing Sway of the Stars erection to throb into the night. I guess really just unbanning them brings more bad than it does good. Like, ultimately, it's not going to be a huge effect because the hype will die down and we'll see them less and less. But these are the kind of spells, the obnoxious shit in Commander that I don't really enjoy seeing. It's just not very fun. Beyond all of that, they did talk about Dockside, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt, explaining how there's not going to be another ban or unban situation until next year. So we now have a year of no bans. They did also explicitly state that if any one of those three was to come off the list, the ban list, it'll be Jeweled Lotus, simply because of how iconic and how big and empowering it is. I'm really fucking glad and proud that they didn't bother to unban these fucking cards and, I don't know, embolden the hateful fucking morons that sent death threats and called people horrible names online, even though I just called them a fucking moron. There's an irony there, right? I think it's good that we didn't do that. I also, on another like supporting point for that, I think that Commander is better without Dockside, Mana Crypt, and Jeweled Lotus in it. Jeweled Lotus is a card that Wizards of the Coast definitely want to be able to sell again in Commander packs further down the line, because it is a literal tailor-made Commander card. It doesn't work anywhere else. It is a thing that they made with the intention of creating a super staple like a Lotus or a Crypt that they can sell on and on and on in fancier versions to monetize the format. And I say, fuck that shit. I'm glad it's gone. I don't want it to come back, and I'm really hoping it doesn't get unbanned next year. Further to that, I did mention they have the Nadu contingency that although they're not going to ban or unban anything for the next year or so, they can do so if there is something that comes up that the entire community basically decides and agrees on is a problem, like Nadu was. Overall, it wasn't as big of a seismic change as I was expecting. I was really worried we're going to see like the Dockside Crypt come off. I'm really happy they didn't. But ultimately, the things that come off the ban list just don't seem to make the format any more fun. But the game changer list is good. That's the bit I do like. I wish Farewell went onto it and Force came off, but yeah, it doesn't really affect much. Healthy conversations, transparent conversations. Overall, it's a good announcement, even if I think the unbans are kind of, yeah. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.